Hello there and welcome to another Hero Arts video. It's Michelle Short here and today I'm sharing how to change the look of die cuts to create different shapes. So let's get started. I'm using the Circle Set Fancy dies today. This comes with two different sizes of the circles. These can be used in lots of different ways. You could use them as a mat, maybe to create a focal point. You could do die cut inlay with all of those pieces around the edge, but today I thought I would change up the shape slightly and create a sun. So I've cut that from some Deluxe smooth white cardstock and I'm just popping out all of those pieces. These are the ones that you could use for a die cut inlay. I think that that would look really nice even for a sun image, but I decided that I was going to cut off that outside edge. So I'm taking my scissors here and I'm just going to run that around the outside edge. I'm not being too precise to make sure that all of these pieces are going to be the same length, because I actually thought that they would look quite nice, some being shorter and some being longer. I thought that it would give the sun a little bit more interest. And it's pretty easy to do, just to cut around that outside edge. And then I can just neaten up any of those sun rays that I weren't completely happy with. So I'm happy with how that looks. So I want to add some ink blending on top to make it yellow. I could have just cut it from some yellow cardstock, but I thought I would do ink blending today. So I'm taking Dandelion core ink and using an extra large ink blending brush and adding that ink on top. I have added the die cut onto a sticky mat so that hopefully it doesn't move too much while I'm adding the ink blending on top. So just adding that dandelion colour across the whole of the sun. And then I can bring in Butterbar core ink, and this is just slightly darker in shade. I probably actually could have got away with not using it, but I wanted there to be a transition colour between this dandelion and then the papaya that I add on top. So I'm using a medium ink blending brush here to focus that colour towards the centre of the sun. I can then go in with Papaya core ink, again with a medium ink blending brush, and I can add that to the centre of the sun. So the centre of the sun is going to be darker and then it's going to fade out to lighter as you get along those sun rays. And then just to make sure that I've got that transition really nice, I'm going back in with the dandelion ink again, just focusing that colour towards the outside edges of those sun rays. I can then work on die cutting the rest of my elements. So I'm taking the Nesting Cloudy Infinity dies and I'm die cutting those from some more Deluxe smooth white cardstock, holding them down with some low tack tape, and then I can run those through my die cutting machine. And while I'm doing the die cutting, I can bring in a panel of pitch black cardstock and I'm taking the Friend Words Fancy dies and I'm going to cut the word friend, and I'm going to cut that 3 times from that pitch black cardstock. So again, I can just hold that die down with some low tack tape and run that through my die cutting machine. I have cut the clouds twice so that I can stack those on top of each other just to add a little bit of dimension onto the card. So I'm using some precision glue and then I can stick the other cloud on top. And because I use that liquid glue, I've got time to wiggle those around, try and line them up as straight as possible. And then I can add some more of that glue onto the friend word. And I did get a little bit too much, so I'm just dabbing off the excess on a scrap piece of paper. And then I can add the other word on top. Some of the glue did seep out a little bit on the sides, but this glue dries completely clear, so it's absolutely fine. But I'm just trying to remove a little bit with my fingers. I then wanted an accompanying sentiment, so I found a sentiment from the Giving Sunflower digital download set. And this you print from your computer. And I printed it onto a panel of Deluxe smooth white cardstock that is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. But on my printer, I did change the settings to be A5 size so that the sentiments printed out a little bit smaller. I'm then going to die cut that sentiment using the Sentiment Strips Fancy die. So I'm just cutting this sentiment down here. I am going to sacrifice the sentiment below it, but I wanted to make sure that I had enough cardstock there so that I could stick that down before I run that through my die cutting machine. And then I can just pop that out on the other side. And I thought that this sentiment would work really well with the sunshine that I've created. So I wanted to add some more layers onto this sun as well. So I've got 2 more of those circle set fancy dies that I've cut from Deluxe smooth white cardstock again, and I'm just adding some more of the precision glue onto those, and then I can adhere them down, and I'm going to do them one at a time. I'm now trying to place the sun on top, and it did take me a little while just to make sure that I got it in the place that it's supposed to be. I'm trying to figure out an area where it's quite easy to figure out which side it goes, if that makes sense. So I picked the one here where there's 2 smaller pieces and then a larger one inside. It didn't take too long for me to line it up, but because I'm using that liquid glue, I can kind of shift things about anyway. But I thought trying to find a piece that was either like really small of those sun rays or one that was really large would help me to line them up a little bit better. I'm then going to go around the outside edges and cut that down. I thought that it would be easier for me to do this in kind of layers and cut off as I go rather than try and cut through 3 layers of cardstock. So that's my sun finished, and now I can adhere that down onto my card base. So I have an A2 size card base here, so that's a finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches, and I've made that from Deluxe smooth white cardstock again, so that all of my cardstock matches each other. I'm going to adhere that down onto the top left hand corner of this card. It is going to overlap the card base. I could have cut the card base to be smaller so that it would fit in a standard size envelope, but I decided actually I just was going to do it as is and create a custom sized envelope for it. So I'm just figuring out where I want my elements to be. And then I can adhere the clouds down. I'm also using the precision glue here to adhere those down. And then I can pop a paperweight on top to hold that down while the glue dries. And then I'm just popping a little bit of foam tape on the right hand side of that cloud just to make sure that it's all one level. And then I'm also adding a tiny bit here onto the bottom of that D, so that again it kind of all lays flat. And then I can add some more precision glue onto the back of the rest of the friend word, and then I can adhere that down. Just kind of hovering it in place with the tweezers there before I stick that down. And then I've added some thin foam tape onto the back of the accompanying sentiment, and I can pop that underneath. And then to finish off, I'm taking some Clear Hero Hues enamel dots, and I'm just adding a few of those onto the clouds. I'm just using a pokey tool here to pick those up, and then I can pop those in place. And ordinarily I would always add embellishments in odd numbers, but in the end I actually added it as a 4 rather than a 3 or a 5, but I still think it looks quite nice. So popping one down here in the left cloud, and then I can just pop another one up there on that top cloud. And I thought these looked a little bit like raindrops, so I thought that they would work quite nicely with the theme of the card. And so that's the card finished for today. I really love how that sun turned out. Really great to be able to get lots of uses from your dies. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description box on YouTube and also over on the Hero Arts blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.